The economic relationship between the United States and China has been marked by escalating tensions, particularly concerning trade policies and financial strategies. The Trump administration has adopted a protectionist stance, aiming to bolster the American economy and safeguard domestic industries. This approach includes imposing substantial tariffs on Chinese imports, with proposals for a universal baseline tariff of 10 to 20% on all imports and up to 60% on Chinese goods. In response, China has implemented 3 major countermeasures. Export restrictions. In early January 2025, China's Ministry of Commerce proposed new export restrictions, targeting technologies essential for producing battery components and processing critical minerals, like lithium and gallium. These materials are vital for manufacturing electric vehicle batteries and semiconductors. The proposed measures aim to strengthen China's control over critical mineral processing, where it currently holds a dominant position, accounting for approximately 70% of global lithium refining capacity. China has been actively promoting the use of its own currency, the yuan, RMB, in cross-border transactions to reduce reliance on the US dollar. This initiative has led to a significant shift in the currency composition of China's international trade. In 2010, less than 1% of China's cross-border payments were settled in yuan, compared to approximately 83% in US dollars. By March 2023, the yuan's share surpassed that of the dollar for the first time, with over half, or 52.9%, of Chinese payments settled in yuan. By March 2024, this transition reflects China's strategic efforts to internationalize the yuan and enhance its financial autonomy. China has been gradually decreasing its holdings of US Treasury securities as part of its broader strategy to diversify foreign exchange reserves and reduce exposure to US dollar-denominated assets. Since the beginning of 2024, China has reduced its net US Treasury holdings by over $21 billion. This move is aligned with China's dollarization efforts and reflects concerns over the long-term sustainability of US debt. In this video, we will explore the recent trend of China selling off its US Treasury holdings and examine its impact on the US economy and policy. Additionally, we will discuss Japan's new policy involving the sale of its US Treasury holdings and its broader implications. China's holdings of US Treasury securities declined to $76.1 billion, marking the lowest level since February 2009. This reduction is part of a broader trend, with China's holdings decreasing by approximately 42% from a peak of $1.32 trillion. In November 2013, this strategic reduction aligns with China's efforts to diversify its foreign exchange reserves and reduce reliance on US dollar assets. Analysts from AZ Research note that Chinese banks have cut their US dollar assets by 22% from their peak in 2021, reflecting a move toward increasing the use of the local currency in international trade to enhance monetary policy independence and better manage exchange rate volatility. China's holdings of US Treasury securities have experienced significant fluctuations over the past 2 decades, reflecting shifts in economic strategies, global market conditions, and geopolitical considerations. China's investment in US Treasuries began to rise notably in the early 2000s, reaching a peak of approximately 116 trillion in November 2013. This accumulation was driven by China's substantial trade surpluses with the United States, resulting in large reserves of US dollars, which were then invested in US government debt. However, since 2013, there has been a gradual reduction in these holdings. By October 2024, China's holdings had decreased to $76.1 billion, marking the lowest level since February 2009 and a 42% decline from the 2013 peak. Factors influencing the reduction: diversification of foreign exchange reserves. China's foreign exchange reserves, the largest globally, totaled approximately $3.122 trillion in December 2024. Historically, a significant portion of these reserves has been held in US dollar-denominated assets. In 2014, about 58% of China's reserves were in US dollars, down from 79% in 2005, indicating a gradual diversification. This diversification strategy aims to mitigate risks associated with currency concentration and enhance the safety and profitability of China's investments. Monetary policy independence. Reducing reliance on US dollar assets provides China with greater flexibility in its monetary policy. By diversifying its reserves, China can better manage its currency, the yuan, and maintain vast economic stability. This approach allows for more effective responses to domestic economic conditions, without being overly influenced by US monetary policy decisions. Concerns over US debt sustainability. The United States public debt has been rising, reaching over $33.4 trillion in 2023, a ninefold increase since 1990. Upheld a strong alliance, rising from the devastation caused by the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Over the following decades, Japan became one of the largest foreign holders of US Treasury securities, typically second only to China. However, recent statistics reveal a significant decrease in Japan's US Treasury holdings, with a reduction exceeding 21% since 2020. Similarly, China, the second largest holder, has diminished its US Treasury assets by 44% since 2013. In the past 3 months alone, Japan has sold $61 billion in US Treasuries, while China has cut its holdings by 51.3 billion yuan. These numbers illustrate a growing trend of both nations offloading US debt. These substantial actions have serious consequences for the US economy and the global financial system. Reduced foreign investment in American debt raises concerns about the direction of US economic policies, possible changes in interest rates, and the continued dominance of the dollar as the world's main reserve currency. All of this is occurring in the context of Donald Trump's recent re-election. His foreign and economic policies have been historically unpredictable and centered on an America First approach. These changes in the behavior of two major US creditors could strain their relationships with Washington, potentially altering the structure of the global economy. In this video, we will analyze these important developments, exploring their historical background, economic impacts, and the strategic landscape that might influence future interactions between the US, Japan, and China, as well as the wider international market. To start, let's look at the US-Japan relationship over time. For over 2 centuries, Japan followed a strict isolationist policy called Sakoku, which severely limited foreign access and prohibited Japanese citizens from traveling abroad. This policy was designed to maintain Japan's social order, restrict foreign influence, and ensure political stability under the Tokugawa shogunate. The turning point occurred in 1853, when Commodore Matthew C. Perry of the U.S. Navy entered Edo Bay, now Tokyo Bay, with a fleet of black ships, steam-powered vessels with advanced technology and weaponry compared to Japan's. Perry's mission, driven by American interests in expanding Pacific trade routes and securing coaling stations for whaling ships, put significant pressure on Japan to end its isolation. The subsequent Treaty of Kanagawa in 1854 effectively terminated Sakoku. This treaty opened 2 Japanese ports, Shimoda and hakodate to U.S. ships and set a precedent for further Western demands and the negotiation of additional unequal treaties. These treaties granted extraterritorial rights to foreign nationals and imposed low fixed tariffs on Japanese goods, causing internal unrest. While some Japanese leaders found these forced openings humiliating, they ultimately acted as a catalyst for Japan's modernization as the country looked to Western nations, including the US, for models of political, economic, and technological advancement. Let's take a quick pause. If you've enjoyed the video so far, could we ask a small favor? Hitting the like button helps us reach a broader audience, and sharing your thoughts or feedback in the comments makes an even bigger impact. Thank you for watching. Now let's dive back in. The fall of the Tokugawa shogunate in 1868 and the ensuing Meiji Restoration marked the beginning of a rapid period of modernization and westernization. The Japanese government sent representatives to learn from Europe and the United States, adopting Western-style industries, education systems, military organizations, and political institutions. American educational models, legal frameworks, and industrial practices significantly influenced the Meiji government's plans for a modern state. Over time, Japan strengthened its economy, built railways, modernized its army and navy with Western help, and adopted constitutional governance. By the late 19th and early 20th centuries, US-Japan relations were relatively friendly. Japan respected America's territorial gains in Hawaii and the Philippines, while the United States recognized Japan's strategic interests in Korea. Although both nations pursued their own imperial goals, they generally maintained a balance of interests. Their cooperation was evident during World War I, when Japan joined the Allies against Germany, capturing German territories in the Pacific and providing naval support. This period laid the foundation for Japan's emergence as a significant regional power and for increasingly complex diplomatic and economic interactions with the United States. As the 20th century progressed, tensions increased. Japan's imperial expansion into Korea, Manchuria, and further into China and Southeast Asia clashed with American trade and security interests. In response to Japanese aggression, the United States imposed escalating economic sanctions. Land reforms redistributed property, reducing the power of wealthy landlords. The large Zaibatsu industrial conglomerates were dismantled to promote competition, and new labor rights empowered workers. Educational reforms introduced American-style schooling and promoted democratic values. These transformative changes not only democratized Japan, but also established stable political institutions and paved the way for the country's future economic miracle. Post-war partnership and economic expansion. The 1951 Treaty of San Francisco officially ended the Allied occupation and restored Japan's sovereignty. Yet the United States remained deeply involved in the nation's security matters. In the same year, the United States-Japan Treaty of Mutual Cooperation and Security was signed, allowing American forces to remain stationed in Japan to ensure its defense. By transferring the responsibility of large-scale defense spending to its ally, Japan could direct resources toward rebuilding infrastructure, industries, and its export-driven economy. Throughout the 1950s and 1960s, Japan utilized advanced manufacturing techniques, quality control practices, and a highly educated workforce to achieve remarkable economic growth. The United States served as a crucial export market, driving Japan's rise to become one of the world's leading industrial powers. This synergy, American security guarantees, combined with Japanese economic vigor, cemented the United States-Japan partnership as a foundation of prosperity and stability in the post-war era, Cold War period, and strategic cooperation. With the onset of the Cold War, the United States-Japan alliance became a central component of America's strategic framework. In Asia, situated near the Soviet Union and China, Japan's role extended beyond economics. It provided logistical support and bases for American forces, becoming a dependable partner in containing the spread of communism. Japan supported U.S. operations during the Korean War from 1950 to 1953 by supplying materials and services, which not only aided the Allied effort, but also boosted its own economy. During the Vietnam War in the 1960s and 1970s, Japan's strategic location and its role as a stable supplier of goods and services similarly reinforced America's regional presence. Although occasional tensions arose over trade imbalances and the U.S. military presence, the core alliance remained strong. America's assurance of Japan's security allowed Tokyo to focus on economic growth, while Japan's rapid modernization and openness to American cultural and commercial influences supported the broader U.S. strategy in the Pacific. Developments. In the 21st century, as the global landscape changed after the Cold War, the United States-Japan alliance adapted to new challenges. With the Soviet Union gone, focus shifted to new issues: North Korea's nuclear and missile programs, the rise of China as a global power, and non-traditional security threats like terrorism and cyber attacks. In response, Japan gradually assumed a more proactive security role. By 2015, Tokyo reinterpreted its pacifist constitution to permit collective self-defense, allowing the Japanese self-defense forces to work more closely with U.S. forces and other regional partners in peacekeeping, maritime security, and humanitarian missions. Today, the alliance extends beyond security, including technological collaboration in areas such as cybersecurity and space exploration, joint research and development, and cooperation to tackle climate change and pandemics. The US and Japan have also engaged in multilateral frameworks like the Quad, which includes Australia and India, to reinforce a rules-based order in the Indo-Pacific. This enhanced partnership is not just about protecting interests. It aims to uphold shared values of democracy, the rule of law, and free trade, thereby shaping a more secure and prosperous future in the region and globally. Repercussions for the US economy. These sell-offs by Japan and China could have significant economic impacts on the United States. A large liquidation of Treasuries might flood the market with supply, lowering prices and increasing yields. Higher yields raise borrowing costs for the government, businesses, and consumers, potentially slowing economic growth. Reduced foreign demand for Treasuries can weaken the dollar. A weaker dollar makes U.S. exports more competitive, but also increases import prices, which could fuel domestic inflation and cause broader market volatility. Confidence in U.S. fiscal health might decline, undermining market stability and questioning the sustainability of U.S. debt. Conclusion: the evolving strategies of major U.S. debt holders, particularly China and Japan, present significant challenges for the Trump administration's fiscal policy and international relations. A reduction in foreign investment in U.S. Treasury securities can lead to higher interest rates as demand for these securities